12 years ago, I was engaged to Sarah. We'd been together for 3 years, and at first, everything seemed solid, until it wasn't. Sarah had developed an obsessive need to control every detail of my life. She demanded my daily schedule down to the minute and expected me to report back if plans changed. Any deviation set her off into a spiral of accusations and paranoia. Her excuse? Past relationships. She'd been cheated on before, and apparently, I was the one now paying for it. The irony of the situation, which you'll soon see, isn't lost on me. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs earlier. Sarah's insecurities didn't appear overnight. They crept in, disguised as concern or affection. At first, it was cute. She'd ask where I was going or when I'd be back. A quick text if I was running late would keep her happy. But over time, the questions became interrogations. Why didn't you answer my text right away? Who's Jessica? And why did she like your post? Why are you suddenly working late on Fridays? You've never done that before. It wasn't just the questions, it was how she asked them. The tone. That razor-sharp edge of accusation hidden behind a thin veil of curiosity. One day, I left my phone charging on the kitchen counter while I took a shower. When I came back, Sarah was sitting at the table with my phone in her hand. She froze, like a kid caught stealing from the cookie jar. "What are you doing?" I asked, drying my hair with a towel. "Oh, just checking the weather," she said, smiling innocently. It would have been convincing if I didn't know my weather app was buried in a folder labeled, "Stuff I Never Use." This behavior wasn't a one-off, either. I'd catch her glancing at my phone notifications when I wasn't looking or scrolling through my social media under the pretense of liking posts for me. The turning point came when she insisted I share my work calendar with her. "You're so busy, babe. It's just so I know when we can plan stuff together," she explained. It sounded reasonable enough, until I missed a meeting because she deleted the reminder to give me some free time. The cherry on top. She got mad at me for being upset. "It's not like I'm spying on you," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "No, Sarah, it wasn't spying, of course not." By the time I almost reached my breaking point, Sarah's behavior had evolved into full-blown micromanagement. She wanted details about everything: who I was talking to, where I was going, what I was doing, and why. Yet, she seemed to become increasingly vague about her own life. She'd brush off questions about her day with a casual, "Oh, the usual," or "work was fine." That was it. No details, no elaboration. And on the rare occasion I pressed her, she'd snap. "Why do you care so much? I don't interrogate you about your day." The hypocrisy was laughable. By the way, I'm a project manager at a construction firm, which means my hours can fluctuate based on deadlines. When work slows down, I can take time off. Sarah worked as a shipping manager at a manufacturing facility. Coincidentally, my brother Mike worked in the same place as a fabricator. It was through Mike that the first seed of doubt was planted. One day, while planning a surprise for our upcoming anniversary, I messaged Mike to find out Sarah's work schedule. That's when things didn't add up. According to her, she worked 12-hour shifts Monday through Friday. But Mike let it slip that she'd been taking Wednesdays off, something she hadn't mentioned to me. I remembered that around this same time, Sarah's controlling behavior went into overdrive. I'd come home and find her obsessively scrolling through my social media or glancing at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I chalked it up to her usual insecurity, but a nagging voice in the back of my mind told me to dig deeper. But lucky for me, I had stacked several days of leisure time up, so taking a Wednesday off for me was not an issue. And then I decided to use one of my accrued days off to see how Sarah was spending her secret Wednesdays. It was time to confirm what I was already beginning to scream in my gut. I decided to dig deeper. I'd learned early in our relationship that Sarah wasn't great with technology. So one night while she was out, I dusted off an old laptop we kept in the apartment. It was barely functional, but good enough for what I had in mind. I set up the laptop in the corner of our home office with the webcam angled toward the living room. A cheap motion detection app let me know when there was movement. The webcam would capture everything, sending a live feed to my phone. It felt wrong, sure. But then I thought about the endless interrogations, the calendar manipulations, and the way she'd scroll through my phone like it was hers. The irony didn't escape me. If she wanted to play the trust police, fine, I'd give her something to investigate. So that Wednesday, I woke up early, pretending it was a regular workday. I kissed Sarah goodbye, grabbed my lunch, and walked out the door. Instead of driving to the office, I pulled into a nearby shopping center across the street from our apartment complex. From there, I had a clear view of both exits. For an hour, I sat in my car, sipping bad convenience store coffee and wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe Sarah had a perfectly innocent reason for taking Wednesdays off. Maybe Mike had misunderstood. Or maybe, just maybe, I'd catch her in a lie. I didn't have to wait long. A bright red Mustang with a specific tacky decal on the rear window pulled into the lot. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to Brandon, Sarah's cousin-in-law. He wasn't exactly family, but close enough to make what happened next even more disturbing. Brandon stepped out, adjusting his shirt like he was nervous. He glanced around, his eyes darting like a kid sneaking into a forbidden R-rated movie. Then he walked into my apartment. For a moment, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was dropping something off or helping her fix something. But deep down, I knew better. Moments later, my phone buzzed. The motion detection app had sent an alert. I opened the live feed from the laptop. There they were. Sarah greeted Brandon at the door with a smile that wasn't meant for cousins. She unbuttoned his shirt, and they started kissing. What a FCK. They didn't even bother moving to the bedroom. Right there on the couch, like animals. I sat there for a minute, trying to process what I was seeing. Then an idea struck me. If they wanted to act like exhibitionists, why not give them an audience? I created a private URL for the livestream and sent it to 2 group chats, one for our family and another for our close friends. Both Sarah and Brandon were in these chats, though they were clearly too busy to notice the notifications. The reactions started pouring in within minutes. Mike, is that Sarah? Brandon's sister. What the FCK is wrong with you, Brandon? One of Sarah's friends. Oh my God, tell me this is fake. And my personal favorite, from one of Brandon's cousins. Wait, is that MY Couch? Meanwhile, my phone buzzed nonstop with calls and texts. Family members, friends, even people I hadn't spoken to in months were blowing me up. It was chaos, and I loved every second of it. I ignored them, choosing instead to focus on the scene unfolding in my apartment. For context, the state I live in allows recording of personal property regardless of occupancy. I was the only one on the lease. She wasn't allowed to be on the lease because of poor credit. Meanwhile, Sarah and Brandon were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on their phones. It wasn't until Sarah's phone rang for the 4th time that she finally paused to answer. She put the call on speaker, probably assuming it was nothing important. But here's where things went from bad to downright humiliating for her. The voice on the other end? It was from her cousin's mother, who she was banging. "Stop screwing my son," she yelled. The color drained from Sarah's face. Brandon froze mid-panic, his shirt half-buttoned and his belt dangling from his hand. I nearly choked on my laughter. "What are you talking about?" Sarah stammered, attempting some weak denial. Brandon's mom wasn't having it. "Don't play dumb. There's a live feed going around, and it's all over our family group chat. You're on camera, Sarah." Sarah scrambled to cover herself with a throw pillow, her hands shaking. Brandon, meanwhile, tried to slip on his pants in a panic. In his rush, he tripped and smacking his head on the edge of the coffee table with a loud thud. For a moment, the camera caught him lying on the floor, clutching his head in pain. It was the most karma-fueled slapstick comedy I'd ever seen. Despite the situation, I couldn't stop laughing, and I laughed so hard that they could probably hear me in the neighboring shopping center. But by the time Brandon got himself together, I was already parked at the apartment's front entrance, waiting for him. When he stumbled out the door, his face still red from the embarrassment, and probably the head bump, he froze and began to cry the moment he saw me, and start apologizing profusely. "Steve, man, I'm so sorry," he stammered. "It was a mistake." I raised a hand to stop him. "Don't. Just shut up." Now I'll admit, I didn't handle this part with the calm, composed demeanor I would have liked. Let's just say I had a cast for 6 weeks, and he wasn't in any family photos for months. After our conversation, Brandon barely walked away with a limp. Fortunately, the fact that he was technically trespassing on private property worked in my favor, and I avoided any legal trouble. After dealing with Brandon, I backed to the apartment. Sarah had somehow managed to throw on some clothes, but her face was streaked with tears. She was pacing the living room like a cornered animal. "Steve, I can explain." "Explain what?" I held up a hand to stop her. "Explain how you decided to screw Brandon on my couch. Or explain why you're too stupid to notice a camera pointed right at you." She froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "I don't care if it's snot or Brandon's come on your face. Don't even bother." Her jaw dropped. I'd never spoken to her like that before, but at this point, the gloves were off. "You have 1 hour," I said coldly. "Pack your stuff and get out. Clothes, makeup, kitchen utensils, whatever fits in your car. Everything else is mine. And if you're still here when the clock's up, I'm calling the cops." She started to argue, but I cut her off again. "You have an hour. Pack up your stuff and get out of here. Otherwise, I can help you, but believe me, you won't like it." Her tears escalated into full-blown sobbing, but I wasn't moved. It didn't take long for word to spread around town. By the time Sarah packed her things and drove off in tears, the group chats had exploded into chaos. Screenshots of the livestream link were making their way to extended family, mutual friends, and even people outside our immediate circle. For someone as obsessed with appearances as Sarah, the fallout was devastating. She tried to salvage her dignity, but it was a losing battle. Her first stop was her mom's house, a natural choice when your life falls apart. Unfortunately for her, her mom wasn't feeling charitable. "You think you can drag this family's name through the mud and then crash on my couch?" her mom supposedly yelled when Sarah showed up. The story made its way back to me through the grapevine, and I'll admit, I enjoyed every detail. Her brothers were no more sympathetic. One of them reportedly said, "You didn't just cheat. You cheated with Brandon." That's a whole new level of gross. With her family turning their backs on her, Sarah tried her luck with friends. But even her closest allies were reluctant to take her in. No one wanted to be associated with her, not after they'd seen her performance on Couch. Brandon didn't escape unscathed, either. His mom was absolutely livid when she saw the live stream. She didn't just kick him out, she dragged him through the mud on every family call and gathering afterward. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to have your son exposed like that?" she reportedly shouted at him. Rumor had it, Brandon ended up crashing on a co-worker's couch for a few weeks before landing in a sketchy motel on the edge of town. His job prospects weren't looking great either. Word of his escapades traveled quickly, and nobody wanted to work with a guy who couldn't keep it in his pants, or out of his family tree. At family gatherings, Brandon was effectively blacklisted. No one would sit near him, talk to him, or even acknowledge his presence. He was the punchline to every joke, the cautionary tale everyone used to warn their kids. As for me, I regret nothing. I moved on, got married for the second time, I am happy and have 3 wonderful children. About the past, Mike and I still laugh about it, especially about Brandon falling on my coffee table. This dent on my coffee table has become a permanent fixture in my apartment. For years I refused to fix it. Every time I looked at it, I remembered that chaos and how I came out on top. Mike got a kick out of the whole thing, too. "You should hang a plaque above it," he joked once. Here lies the moment Brandon learned gravity's a BTCH. That dent is still there, by the way. A souvenir from the day I reclaimed my dignity.